Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Purveyor in Fallout 76. Today we're going to burn through 1,000 legendary Scrip on 3-star ranged weapons to see if Mama Mumbles has anything good for us that we might be able to use for future weapon videos or just have a little bit of fun with. As always, if you enjoy videos like this and you want to see more, make sure you go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment. There's always a lot more to come on the channel, and I hope I see you again in the future. Now I think that's enough chit-chat. Let's get into it. We'll see what Mama Mumbles has for our very first roll today. And it looks like it's a Mutant Pipe Revolver with 33% VATS hit chance and extra agility. So, the Pipe Revolver is kind of interesting. I'm fairly certain that you can still double dip on your damage perks here for pistol perks and rifle perks if you put the rifle stock on it. The way that damage calculates now, you're going to get some pretty diminishing returns on that, but I'm pretty sure it still works. So if you want to play around and get creative, that's one way you can do it. The 33% VATS hit chance effect, I'm a big fan of that. That really allows you to... The main benefit of that is it allows you to target enemy weak points easier. So if you notice when you're using VATS, it's easy to target a torso, it's harder to target a limb. So by increasing your hit chance makes it easier to target those limbs, one of which on every enemy is going to be a weak spot where you do double damage. Usually that's the head. So that's a pretty effective perk. Little extra agility, well, that never hurts anybody, helps with your stealth, gives you more AP for use in VATS, so both of those are good things, if not major benefits. And then, of course, the main effect is mutants. 10% damage if you're mutated. Not the greatest effect in the world to get. It's only a 10% damage buff, but at the same time, there's no negatives to it. So, it's not so... But probably not the best roll in the world. Let's see what's next. And now we've got a much better roll. Okay. All right. So I must have done something right for Mama Mumbles today. So here we've got a Junkies Handmade with faster fire rate and 25% less VATS AP cost. So this is one of the most desirable weapons in the game. The Junkies effect is second really only to Bloodied in terms of the damage buff you get. I would argue that it's probably, on a handmade, it's probably right in line with AntiArmor in terms of actual damage output, but the advantage to Junkies is you're going to get a damage buff against everything. So even if a target has no armor or very little armor, you're going to get a damage buff, where anti-armor on bigger, tankier enemies, you get a really noticeable effect, where on things like ghouls, you don't get that much. So Junkies probably gives you a little more utility overall, and if you play it smart, you can pick 5 addictions to max out that effect that don't really hurt you that badly. So not a bad effect to have if you're going for big damage numbers and you don't mind running around a little bit addicted. If you pair that with a heavy chem user build, then you can get even more buffs on top of that, because you now have an excuse to take lots of those chems that you're addicted to, so you can get a little more damage out of that. So you can do a lot with a Junkies build. 25% faster fire rate. That's one of the most desirable effects on Handmade. You could make the argument that explosive is better because it gives you additional damage, and I wouldn't fight with you on that argument, but faster fire rate is going to increase your DPS overall very, very effectively, because quite simply, you put more shots on target a lot faster. Third, then, we've got 25% less VATS AP cost. If you are running a commando build or a stealth commando build, part of that is probably using VATS criticals, so reducing your VATS AP cost is super, super useful. That also helps counteract some of the addictions you might be carrying around that reduce your AP or reduce your agility. So all 3 of those things work very, very well together on a handmade. This is an awesome roll. Everything else we get today is going to look terrible in comparison, more than likely, but that's okay. We've had a string of pretty boring visits to the Purveyor, so I'll take a really great roll every now and again. Let's see what's next. And what's next is a medic single action revolver with VATS critical shots doing more damage and 15% faster reload. So, not a huge fan of revolvers. The damage output they have is simply not that high. They fire slowly, they reload slowly. They definitely leave a lot to be desired, so I'm not a huge fan of them. With that said, I understand why people do like them. For a lot of them, the animations are great, they're fun to use, they look cool, they work with certain character builds very, very well. So I understand why somebody's going to go for kind of a cowboy gun build. And if you're doing that, then this might not be a bad one to go with. So VATS critical shots doing more damage and VATS critical shots healing you and your group, those two effects synergize really well together because you're going to build around VATS criticals. You're going to build to do as many of those VATS criticals as possible. So that can be a pretty effective damage increase, especially if you pair that with concentrated fire and targeting enemy weak spots. That could be better than it looks on paper. Then when we have faster reload, remember one of the drawbacks to this weapon is it's a slower reload weapon, so speeding that up is definitely a good thing to have. Overall, am I in love with it personally? For me, no. But I could imagine a scenario where this is a really solid weapon for the right person. Next up, we've got a Suppressor's Western Revolver with faster fire rate and 90% reduced weight. Now this weapon I like honestly a lot less than the last one. This one, other than the reduced weight, these other two effects aren't really doing anything for you at all. So suppressors, while it's an interesting effect on paper, that it reduces your target's damage output by 20% for 3 seconds after you land a shot. The reality is that almost every enemy you face in this game is going to be dead in 1 to 3 seconds. Very, very easily with almost every weapon. So that's not really helping you all that much. You could make the argument that it's useful against bosses, that it reduces their damage output, and maybe that helps you and your team or other players that are around, but there just isn't really anything in the game that deals the right amount of damage that reducing it by 20% is going to matter for anyone. 25% faster fire rate on a weapon that fires as fast as you can pull the trigger, well, that's pretty pointless, isn't it? So the only thing here that does anything is 90% reduced weight, and the only thing it really does is make this weigh 0.4 of a pound so we can store it in our stash easily and save that 40 scrip for a time when we really need it. Let's move on. And our next roll is a Bloodied Cryolator with 10% damage while aiming and 25% less VATS AP cost. So the primary benefit to a Cryolator isn't about damage. To me, the ideal Cryolator is probably a quad because you don't have to reload it as often. You can put shots on your target and keep it frozen very effectively for a more sustained period of time. Where you're going to use a Cryolator primarily is going to be against boss enemies. It works very well against the Scorch Beast Queen. When she's on the ground, you can lay down shots into her, slow her down, and freeze her in place so everybody can attack. You can also do the same thing with the Imposter Sheep Squatch at Encrypted. So that is a scenario where this one is maybe pretty good in the sense that 25% less VATS AP cost means you can lock on in VATS and get a lot more shots on target before you have to pull away. The Scorch Beast Queen's fairly easy to free aim a Cryolator at, where the Imposter Sheep Squatch moves really, really fast, so that's a lot harder to do. With this, you can lock on and land those shots with VATS, so that could be useful. 10% damage while aiming. Yes, you can free aim it, but I think with that reduced VATS AP cost, you're going to use this in VATS more often. So that's probably not doing a whole lot for us. The Bloodied effect, it's going to give you more damage. That's not a bad thing, but the Cryolator has never really been about doing damage in the first place. So is this a bad Cryolator? No, it's a pretty good one. It's going to do more damage. You get less VATS AP cost, all those things. Is it the best Cryolator in the world? Not really. What I'd love is a quad with fire rate and less VATS AP cost. That would be phenomenal. But as Cryolators go, you don't really need a special one to do what you need to do with it. So all in all, it's perfectly fine. It's got at least one legendary perk on it that'll do something for you. You know, cryolators, specialty weapons, they're good for what they're good at and not really great for much else. Let's move along. Next up, we've got a Mutant Slayers double barrel shotgun with 25% faster fire rate and extra perception. So, Mama Mumbles is enjoying giving me faster fire rate today. Sadly, it's mostly on weapons that it doesn't do anything for. But hey, we got to forgive her a little bit. She gave us a Junkies Handmade with fire rate. Can't do much better than that. So this one, Mutant Slayers effect, situational effect, probably one of the better situational effects because you know when you're going to be facing super mutants, so it's fairly easy to keep around for that purpose. Faster fire rate. Fires as fast as you can pull the trigger, but you got to reload it every 2 shots. That's doing nothing for us. Extra perception will increase our VATS accuracy a little bit, but overall, this is basically a 1-star weapon, let's be honest with ourselves. And that star isn't that great. So if you're a shotgun build and you hunt a lot of super mutants, maybe it would be useful for you, but for me, it's definitely going to get turned back into Scrip at probably one of my next earliest opportunities. And our next roll, oh, this is rough. Okay, so we're paying for that Junkies Handmade, aren't we? Yeah. Ghoul Slayer's Assaultron head with faster fire rate and extra agility. So, if there is any enemy where you probably don't really need extra damage, it's ghouls because they're really squishy to begin with. And if you're going to go up against them with anything, it's going to be something that shoots fairly quickly. The salvaged Assaultron head is not that weapon. The advantage to it is you can charge it up with multiple shots and do more damage, which is pretty cool, but it just doesn't really work that well in practice. Faster fire rate, again, it'll fire fairly quickly if you're not charging it up, but the whole point of the weapon is to charge it up, so yeah, another weapon where faster fire rate does absolutely nothing for us. Extra agility, I mean, it doesn't hurt. It helps with your stealth and it gives you a little more AP, but yeah, this one's just not gonna do it for anybody. Probably very, very early on the return to the Scrip bin list. Let's see if we can get anything else good today. Okay, we've got 3 left. What's next? We've got a Junkies Gatling laser with VATS critical shots doing more damage and 50 damage resistance while aiming. So, Junkies effect, like we talked about earlier, it's easy to use. For most players, you can get addicted to 5 things and pick and choose things that don't have effects that hurt you too badly. So that's easy to do for what amounts to a 50% damage buff, or what used to amount to a 50% damage buff. Now, with the diminishing returns on things, it's not so much like that. But it's still not bad. Unfortunately, it's on a Gatling laser where the damage is already oddly low for some reason. The advantage to a weapon like this is if you're a power armor build and you've maximized the efficiency of your fusion cores, you can carry this around shooting fusion cores and not really feel like you're burning through much ammo because you've got legendary perks that recharge cores and you're picking them up all the time and it just doesn't really feel like much of anything. So that can be useful. Unfortunately, the other effects here don't do a whole lot for us. VATS critical shots doing more damage on a heavy gun. That's not super effective. I'm sure there's somebody out there that runs VATS and VATS critical builds on a heavy gun, but I think those folks are going to be few and far between. I am definitely not one of them. Then our 3rd star, of course, is 50 damage resistance while aiming. That's not bad. I mean, it doesn't hurt you, but I know in my experience with these weapons, I often hip fire them rather than aiming down sights. I find it's just a little easier and quicker. So yeah, not in love with that one, but maybe somebody else would be. And this one is a little more fun, maybe. So after the big fix to weapon condition a couple of weeks back, I decided, I'm going to break out this bloodied fat man that I've had laying around forever and a day and do a weapon spotlight video on it. Unfortunately, I was never able to release that video because I couldn't stop blowing myself up. Running around at low health with this thing is challenging. And while there are probably people out there who are going to laugh at me about that and say, oh, you just suck and you can't stop blowing yourself up with your fat man, then you know what, all of you are probably 100% correct. But that's why this one is interesting to me, because this gives us an effect we can test, but I can run at full health. So, you know, with the perks that I had with Fireproof and perks like that, it definitely reduced the damage that I took, but not enough that if I'm running at 20% health, it wouldn't kill me. So this, I could run at full health. The legendary effect, therefore, won't affect me, and hopefully learn to stay a little bit further away when I shoot it. So that might be interesting. It might be one we can use to test that out in the future. I'll have to see, but let's talk about the effects. Executioners is going to do more damage when our target is below 40% health. That's useful because you're going to get a pack of enemies that you chase after with this. And some of those enemies you're going to kill in one shot, and some of them you're just going to do a chunk of damage to. So your follow-up shots will be more effective. Limb damage, those enemies that survive will be more likely to be crippled. So hopefully you cripple their legs and slow them down and keep them where you want them to be. 15% faster reload is very effective on a weapon like this. You reload every shot, so speeding up that process never hurts anybody. So this one's kind of interesting. I'm interested to see how this works. I might tinker around with it on the Tuesday night stream this week, and then maybe consider doing a spotlight video on it later. We'll find out. And our last roll of the day is going to be an AntiArmor Flamer with 10% damage while aiming, and 250 damage resistance while reloading. So let's start at the bottom. Damage resistance while reloading, I don't mind that, but it's probably got diminishing returns. Generally speaking, if you're using this weapon, you're probably running around in power armor as a heavy gunner. So diminishing returns on that, but hey, a little extra damage resistance never hurt anybody, especially when you're defenseless. 10% damage while aiming, again, doesn't hurt anybody to have that. But this is more of a hip fire weapon, so I doubt you're really going to be aiming down sights with it all that often, so probably not that useful. The anti-armor effect is the one with the interesting question. So this weapon now does flame damage, and enemies have specific resistance to flame damage. So this is going to be an interesting one to check out, and I think on the Tuesday night stream this week, I am going to at least take a look at it and see how it works in practice. My question is, will this actually reduce the flame damage that an enemy has? Or will it reduce their ballistic damage, thereby rendering the effect useless? I don't know, so I guess we'll have to find out. Someone will probably pipe up in the comments and tell me, and that's fine too, but I'm interested to see it, so that's kind of an interesting question, because that's how energy weapons were for the longest time until they sort of fixed that. Their armor penetration calculation is still off, so it's not as effective as it should be, but it's better than it was. So I'm interested to see how that one shakes out. Either way, we did pretty well tonight. We got a couple of interesting things with that Flamer and that Fat Man. We got a pretty damn close to God roll handmade with the Junkies Faster Fire Rate handmade. So I've got really no complaints tonight. Mama Mumbles did right by us, and I think that is an appropriate place to leave this one be. Remember, if you had fun with this, if you want to see more, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, follow me on Twitter at FistyMcRib, and I hope I see you all next time.